Hi, this is Danny, and this is a video in reply to the question about how to break symmetry on models. Typically, if I'm not working with organic models and the model is going to be hard surface and it isn't symmetrical, then I just simply model it as an asymmetrical model and be done with it. Generally, I'll start off with a model in symmetry, and I will take it to the point in which that symmetry must be broken, and then I will model just one side and make those changes, and then finally I would add the UVs and then do the texturing, etc. But when it comes to modification, that's a little bit different because I'm not adding or taking away geometry. So in this example, this was a carp that I made for a client, and he wanted there to be asymmetry in the fish, but I knew that during the technical part of the workflow that I had to have the original mesh in its symmetrical form so I could perform certain tasks. So that's why I use post morphs, and I always use post morphs. So in the post morph that you can see here, I've got 3. I did have more to start with, but I ended up with only 3. And this is, I made an eye adjustment with this one. I made it more puffed up. So you can see there it's more puffed up. And any asymmetrical editing that I want to do to this, as far as manipulation, is done within a morph. I can always bring it back. I also use this for the reasons that if you've got a character and the character is initially done with symmetry, it's going to be easier to do weight painting. And it's going to be easier to do other tasks in symmetry, especially when you're taking it out into another program like ZBrush. So I would make those asymmetrical changes with post morphs, either inside Cinema 4D, or I would send the model over into ZBrush and then bring that back in and apply it as a morph in here. Now, from this point onwards, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do. I take it a little bit step further when it comes to morphs and displacement maps. So if you don't really want to know about this point onwards, then you don't have to watch any further. For those of you who are interested in my workflow and what I do, then continue to watch. So I'm in Redshift. This can be done pretty much any render engine, and the whole point is that sometimes you've got to make a morph which is quite complex. And this is a good example of that complexity. You see, with a carp mouth don't just simply open up, it actually protrudes and comes out. So I had to model this carp with the mouth out initially. Although you see the mouth in right now, this is something that I had to do with post morphs, hence why it's important to understand what your basic base level mesh should be like before you make such changes. So you can see I've got this slider down here, mouth in and mouth out, and if I just move this, you can see how the lips actually come out like a hoover, and this is the way that the anatomy is for a carp. So I initially had to model it like this, and certain operations had to be done with symmetry, especially when it comes to modification with using the sculpting brushes, because that does work in symmetry real time inside Cinema 4D. So this is initially the way it was modeled. What I had to do is I had to painstakingly pull all of this in and sculpt it, and for this reason I actually chose to do this inside ZBrush, although it could be done inside Cinema 4D if you had to. So I took this into ZBrush, I moved all of the geometry back into the mouth so that the carp looked like that. So once I'd done this, I then brung that model with the mouth into side Cinema 4D, and then with the post morph I would apply a post morph point based, and then in the advanced I would drag and drop this new sculpted version, the target, into here. Immediately after I drag it in here, you should see the update changes. You just got to go to this here and then clear it. When you clear it, it kind of bakes that into the actual morph that you've created, and therefore you can delete that secondary mesh which has got the changes in it. So that's how I did this, but it's also the case that you may want to take this a little bit further, which I had to do. I noticed when I was looking at detailed photographs of what happens when the ellipse come out on a carpfish, is that there's a lot of creases and a lot of details that come out with it, a lot of wrinkles. So I had to use the version with the mouth out, where there was a lot of details and crinkles around it, to sculpt in some very high frequency details all the way around here. What I then done was I applied it as a displacement map, and then I got it to be driven by the morph. So this slider for the morph is set to be a driver, and inside the material that's applied to the fish, I've got several displacement maps. I've got a displacement map which is used for general detail. I've got a displacement map when the mouth's in, and I've got a displacement map when the mouth's out. Now I've actually got an updated version to this, you could say a optimized scene, which I haven't got located with me right now, but it's named properly, unlike this. So you would see a displacement, I think I called it base, mouth in, mouth out. And what I did was I actually drive these morphs according to what state the animation is in. So as you'll see right now, when I move the mouth in, the carp mouth goes in, but if you look, this displacement here is at 100%. Now when I move this up, you'll see the opposite happen. So what happens is the other displacement will go down, and the displacement for the mouth out will go at 100%. And then you'll see this in the animation happen in real time. You'll see these details come out as the mouth comes out. So that's how I got around that. So post morphs I use a lot. I really do use post morphs a heck of a lot. As far as espresso is concerned, very basic. Espresso is used, as you can see there, but I won't go into that. So yeah, that is really all there is to it. I definitely use morphs a lot, especially for humans when I want to break that symmetry to try to gain likeness of a particular person.